She had rehearsed the vows for 6 weeks. Not casually, not the half-distracted way people skim notes before a presentation. Deliberately and systematically, with the investment of someone who understood that words spoken in front of 112 people needed to be the truest she had ever said in public. She had written them over 3 drafts. The first was too formal, sincerity performed rather than expressed. The second overcorrected into informality, which felt wrong at an altar. The third was right. She knew it was right because when she read it aloud to her best friend Maya on the Thursday night before the wedding, Maya had cried, properly, unexpectedly, pressing her fingers to her cheekbones. And that felt like confirmation. The words had landed somewhere real. Standing at the altar of Ashwood Manor on a Saturday afternoon in June, in a restored stone hall with candlelight and white flowers and 112 guests sitting in warm expectation, Priya Sharma began to say those words. She said the first 2 sentences clearly, looking at James, who stood at the altar with the contained composure of a man who has known he was handsome since he was 16 and has organized his sense of occasions around it. Then something made her look up, not deliberately. Not a choice. A pull. The specific involuntary pull of a memory presenting itself at full force in the middle of something else entirely. She looked past James to the left wall of the hall, where the caterers moved with silver trays. And she stopped. Not a pause. A stop. Complete and absolute. The words left her the way a familiar song leaves you mid-lyric when something interrupts the part of your brain that holds it. She was standing at her own wedding, holding vows she had written herself over 3 careful drafts, and she was looking at a man she had not seen in 8 years. And the most honest thing she could have said to anyone in that moment was this. She had never entirely finished the conversation that had started with that man on a sidewalk in Chicago in November 8 years ago. She had walked away from it because walking away was practical, and she had spent 3 years telling herself that practical and right were the same thing. Standing at the altar with the vows in her hands, she was no longer sure that they were. Her name was Priya Sharma, and she was 32 years old and had spent the last 3 years building what she had understood, until approximately 40 seconds ago, to be a complete and correctly assembled future. James Whitfield was 36. He was an investment banker at a firm that managed enough capital to make the number abstract. He was tall and dependable in the ways that dependability can be measured and confirmed. He had proposed at Amare, the restaurant Priya had mentioned wanting to try for 2 years, which meant he had been listening, which she had found genuinely moving. The ring was exactly right in size and design, which meant he had paid attention to what she wore and what she liked. She had said yes with the exhale of someone who has been building towards something and has finally arrived. She had loved him. She was careful about this in her own mind. Clarity was a professional habit that had become a personal one. She had loved James with the real, warm, daily love of someone who has found a person worth building with. He was present, committed, genuinely good to her in the specific ways that require attention rather than grand gestures. What she had not examined carefully, what she had chosen, at some point she could not precisely locate to leave unexamined, was a different question. Not whether she loved James. Whether what she felt with James was the fullest version of what she was capable of feeling. Whether she had been choosing James, or choosing the rightness of choosing James, and whether those were the same thing. The question had been there, small and persistent, for most of the 3 years. She had managed it the way you manage a low-grade discomfort that is not debilitating, by not pressing on it, by focusing on what was good, which was many things, by trusting that feelings which feel right from a distance feel right because they are right, The vows had required her to press on it. They required her to stand in front of 112 people and say, "This is everything. This is complete. I am here with my whole self, and this is enough." And at the moment of saying it, looking past her fiancé at a man she had not seen in 8 years, she understood that she could not honestly say that. Not yet, possibly, not ever, but certainly not today. His name was Daniel Reeves. She had known him for 4 months, 8 years ago, in Chicago. She had been 24, 3 months into a corporate analytics role she had taken because it was the right career move, and quietly discovering that right career moves and right life moves are not always the same thing. The work was engaging enough. The city was new and full of the particular energy of a place you are still discovering. She had met Daniel at a bookshop on a Saturday afternoon, at the architecture and urban planning section, where they had both reached for the same title and had the small comedy of discovering a shared interest in one of the better possible ways to discover one. He was a graduate student, studying urban systems, the way cities work, the infrastructure of density and flow, the specific human problems that urban environments generate. He had opinions about this. He had opinions about everything, delivered with the directness of someone who had been taught that the point of having opinions was to share them, hear others, and update when necessary. They had talked in the bookshop for 2 hours, then in a coffee shop for another hour, then walking along the lakefront because neither of them wanted to stop, and the lakefront was there, cold and bright and perfect for the kind of conversation that expands to fill whatever space is available. Over the following 4 months, she had seen him every week. She had never felt, before or since, and she had been careful in her inventory of this, what she felt with Daniel. It was not the euphoria of infatuation, which she recognized and which has a recognizable shape and a predictable arc. It was something quieter and more durable. The specific sensation of being known. Not performed for, not impressed, but known. The way he listened with the full attention of someone who found what she was saying genuinely interesting. Not as social performance, but as actual response to actual content. The way he told the truth about what he thought and changed his mind in public when he was wrong, and did not consider this embarrassing. Then her contract had ended. Denver was offered as a permanent relocation, and it was the right career move. He had a dissertation to finish and a life in Chicago. They had stood on a sidewalk in November, their breath making clouds in the cold air, and said the things people say when they know what they feel and cannot find a practical path for it. He had told her to go where she needed to go. She had believed him. She had gone. She had thought about that sidewalk for a year, then less, then the way things fade when you choose not to sustain them. James had appeared 2 years later, present, real, there, and she had chosen presence and reality and there-ness. She had not thought about Daniel Reeves in 4 years. She had not expected to see him holding a silver tray at her wedding. Tell us in the comments where you are listening from. Please like, subscribe, and share HeartLine Stories. Every subscriber brings more stories like this. Now, back to the story. The hall was quiet, in the way large rooms become quiet when something unexpected is happening and no one has yet decided what kind of unexpected it is. The officiant waited with the patient stillness of someone experienced in human unpredictability. Ceremonies had paused before. Brides had cried, had collected themselves, had continued. James waited. His composure was holding. She could see him holding it, which she had not seen before, which told her something about his attention in this specific moment. He was watching her with the focus of someone who has noticed something is happening and is managing his response to not knowing what. Maya, in the front row, had followed Priya's eyes to the left wall. She did not recognize the man there, but recognized the movement. Involuntary, the shape of something not chosen, and gripped the arm of her chair. Daniel, by the left wall, had looked away the moment their eyes met. Deliberately, with the specific courtesy of someone who understands they have become a complication in a situation they did not create. He was looking at the middle distance, the tray steady, his face empty of anything that could be read as claim or invitation. Priya looked at the vows in her hands. She had written them over 3 drafts. They described something real. They did not describe something complete. She lowered the paper. "James," she said. His composure shifted. "Priya, I need to stop for a moment. I need to tell you something honestly. Right now, before we go any further." The hall stirred. A collective adjustment, a murmur, 112 people recalibrating their understanding of what kind of afternoon this was. "I love you," she said. She said it clearly because it was true and because he deserved to hear it clearly in this moment. "I have loved you for 3 years, and I do not say what comes next to diminish that. But I have been standing here saying these words I wrote myself, and I realized, just now, that I have been thinking about what I should feel, what I am supposed to feel, and I have not honestly asked whether I actually feel it." The room was absolutely still. James looked at her. His face moved through things. Hurt, which was genuine and visible. Something that looked like anger and resolved into something more complex. And then, she saw it and it undid her a little, his own recognition. The flicker of a person who has also perhaps been not asking himself a question. "Is there someone else?" he said. "No," she said, and this was true. There was a memory and a question and a possibility, but there was not someone else. Then what? "I am not ready," she said. "I wanted to be. I have wanted to be for a long time, but I am not." The hours that followed were the hardest she had been through. The guests were asked, with professional tact from the venue coordinator who earned their entire fee in that 1 hour, to go home. James's family gathered in the foyer with the contained devastation of people managing emotion in public. His brother looked at Priya, and she held his gaze and did not look away because she owed him that. Her mother found her in the anteroom where the bridal party had gathered before the ceremony. Her mother sat beside her and took her hand, and they sat together while the venue staff began the quiet work of dismantling arrangements that had taken 6 months to assemble. Maya drove her home. They sat in Maya's apartment with tea and the particular silence of people who know each other well enough to not need to fill it. At some point, Priya said, "I don't know if I did the right thing." And Maya said, "I know you did the honest thing." And Priya understood that those 2 things were related but not identical, and that she would need time to understand the relationship between them. She spent 2 weeks doing almost nothing beyond going to work and fielding the necessary calls. She called her parents every few days and navigated those conversations with care. Her father was hurt in the specific way of fathers who have invested money and energy in something that did not happen, and this was legitimate, and she did not minimize it. Her mother was more complex. Sad and worried, and also, in a way Priya could clearly see, not surprised. She told Maya the truth, all of it. The recognition across the hall, what it had made visible, the question she had finally asked herself and the answer she could not avoid. Maya listened completely. When Priya finished, Maya said, "You stopped a lie from becoming permanent. I know it doesn't feel like that right now. It will." 3 weeks after the wedding that had ended mid-vow, Priya called the catering company. The coordinator gave her Daniel's number without ceremony. Priya called from her kitchen at the table her mother had helped her move into this apartment 4 years ago. He answered on the second ring, a half-breath of pause after she said her name. "Priya," he said, quiet, direct, warm in the way that does not perform warmth. "I called," she said, "because I did not want to leave this as another thing that ended without a conversation. I have had enough of those." "I heard what happened," he said. "I have spent 3 weeks concerned that my being there—" "It was not you," she said. "I need you to hear that clearly. What happened was about me, about a question I had been not asking myself for a long time. You being there was the moment when not asking became impossible, but the answer was already inside me. You did not put it there." He was quiet for a moment. "How are you?" he asked. It was such a simple question. James had stopped asking it somewhere in the second year, not from cruelty but from the comfortable assumption of couples who believe they already know the answer. "I am figuring things out," she said. "I am not going to tell you I am fine because I am not quite fine yet. I am getting there." "That sounds right," he said. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Why were you there? Of all the events in Denver on that particular Saturday?" A quiet breath. "My brother runs a catering company. He needed extra staff for a large event last minute. I am here for the semester, visiting faculty at CU Denver, urban planning." A pause. "I did not know it was your wedding until I saw the name at the venue entrance." "What did you do when you saw it?" "I thought about leaving for about 30 seconds, he said. "Then I thought, it is a large hall. I will stay on the far side. You will never see me." That plan had several significant flaws. "In retrospect, yes," he agreed. She was quiet for a moment. Outside the kitchen window, Denver moved through its evening, indifferent to the specific weight of what was being said in one apartment in one building. "I am not calling with a plan," she said. "I want to be honest about that from the beginning. I am calling because I did not want to leave this as another closed door. 8 years ago, we stood on a sidewalk and I walked away, and I have wondered since whether I closed that door too quickly, whether I assumed I knew the answer to a question I had not actually asked." He was very quiet. "What was the question?" he said. "Whether it was only the timing," she said. "Whether what we had was the wrong moment, or whether it was something that would still be there if the moment were right." The silence on his end was warm. She had forgotten that silences could be warm, that they could hold things rather than simply be empty. "I think," he said slowly, each word placed with care, "that there might be something worth finding out." They met for coffee 5 weeks later. Not sooner. She had asked for time, and he had said, "Take whatever time you need." She had believed him, which was itself something. A Saturday morning in November. A small place on Blake Street with regulars and good light and the warmth of many years of conversations. Their breath made clouds outside before they went in. They talked for 4 hours. About Chicago, the bookshop, the lakefront walk, the November sidewalk they had each replayed more often than they had told anyone. Or about the 8 years between, his dissertation, his tenure-track position, a relationship that had lasted 3 years and ended honestly because they were both honest people who recognized when something was finished. Her career, Denver, the 3 years with James, the wedding that had ended mid-vow, about what they wanted now, carefully without rushing toward a conclusion, with the honesty of 2 adults who have each been through enough to know that what you feel across a table on a Saturday morning is real, and also not the same as what you build over time. "I need to ask you something," Daniel said near the end of the 4th hour. Ask it. Are you sure it was not me that stopped you at the altar? Are you sure you did not stop because of what you felt when you saw me there, rather than because of something you realized about yourself? She considered this with the seriousness it deserved. I am sure, she said. What stopped me was recognizing that I had been asking the wrong question. I had been asking, do I love James? The answer was yes, genuinely yes. But I had not asked, is this the full truth of what I am capable of feeling? And seeing you, not because you were there, but because you reminded me that I knew the answer to that second question. That is what stopped me. You reminded me of something I had been trying to forget. That is honest, he said. I am trying to be more honest, she said, more consistently. I think it is the most important thing. He nodded slowly. I will be honest, too. I thought about that sidewalk for 3 years. I told myself I had let it go. I do not think I entirely had. She looked at him across the small table, the coffee cups, the November light through the window. Then let us find out, she said. Not what it is, not where it goes. Just let us ask the question we did not ask, properly this time, and see what the answer is. He smiled. The same smile she remembered from the bookshop 8 years ago, the one that arrived because something was genuinely good. Yes, he said, let us do that. Outside, Denver went on being Denver, moving, indifferent, luminous with ordinary light. Inside, 2 people chose to ask the question rather than assume the answer. Not a fairy tale, not a clean story with a guaranteed arc. Something more valuable than either, an honest beginning. The specific courage of 2 people who have each learned, the hard way, that it is better to ask and not know than to assume and be wrong. Priya paid for the coffee. He held the door on the way out. She stepped into the November air and breathed. For the first time in 3 weeks, getting there felt like it was pointing somewhere real. This has been a HeartLine Stories original. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Write to us at heartlinestories@gmail.com. Every heart has a story worth telling. This is HeartLine Stories, where yours matters. Iwi in Ogres.